Okay, good morning, brothers and sisters. Today is June 19th, 2024. So, I want to share something, a word that I was given last night. And before I go into that, I just want to explain a few things. Now, since the Lord woke me up, I'm going to just tell you that everything I've ever learned or was told was from God, okay? For example, a while ago, this was probably years ago, when I was talking to a pastor about all these dreams, just asking for his help and advice, he told me that I was learning too much from God himself. I was learning about God more than I was the Word, and that I needed to know the Word more than I needed to know from God. Something along those lines. And so what I'm saying is, if you were to give me any kind of chapter and a verse out of the Bible, I honestly couldn't tell you what it is. Now, my husband's very good at that. But I can honestly say, and this is the truth, that like I said, if somebody, except for like the one that I do know is Matthew 24, I think everybody knows that one. But that's just the truth. I don't know. If the Lord gives me a chapter, a verse, whatever, I don't know what it is. I don't have this stuff memorized. I never have. I know at the beginning when I was dreaming, I would tell my husband about it, and he's like, oh, that's in, and he'd name off the book and the verse. I mean, because my husband is good with that. He knows stuff like that. I don't. And I just believe there's a reason for that. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's being used for a witness. But I wanted to explain this to you guys before I tell you what I was given. So for you guys to kind of understand my relationship with God, that's just, just like last night, I was asking Brian, how does the Lord talk to you? And what he does is he's been doing this for years, is he takes time, quiet place, and he writes out his questions. And before he finishes asking the question, the Lord gives him an answer. And I know my problem is, sometimes I struggle because I talk a lot. And the Lord, in an open vision to my husband, told him, he said, tell Rhonda to stop talking and listen. So I've been trying to do that over the years, but I'm the type of person that I am a talker. When I lay in bed at night and talk to the Lord, I must ask 100 questions. I just talked to him about everything. But I wasn't, listening. And I think that's why he gives me dreams, because I can't talk back. Seriously. So I was talking to my husband about it. He said, you have to find your own way. He said, but you do need to listen. Remember, what you do is you ask one question and you listen. And see, my thing with the Lord is, he's my father, he's my friend. So when I lay in bed at night, I often tell him about things that I have planned for the next day. I talk to him, I ask questions, but I never really stop to listen. You know what I'm saying? I hope you guys can understand this. So he has always speaks to me in dreams, and it's always been confirmed, because when I tell my husband the dreams, he knows exactly where in the Bible that's at. So I'm saying all this to say that last night when I was laying in bed, I'm talking to the Lord, I apologize. I said, I'm sorry. I'm a terrible. I know I ask you so many questions and I'm not just sitting still. So I said, I'm going to practice this. So I started practicing it. So when I was laying in bed last night, I asked God for a word. And I laid very still, and my mind was going, because my mind wants to jump in and start asking all questions, but I just asked for a word, and I laid there very still, And while I was still awake, I clearly heard Daniel chapter 9. So, at that time, I had no idea what was in Daniel chapter 9. Because like I said, I don't have these things memorized. I've always literally just trusted on God. What he shows me, I know is the truth. So that's always been my relationship with the Lord, So, I waited till this morning to get up, and I read the chapter, and what I went ahead and did also is I went on a site, and I use this site once in a while when I need to understand a verse, when I need to understand what it means, and it's called Got Chapters, or Got Questions. So I'm going to read to you from this site. Okay, it's not from me, but it's from this site. And if you guys have anything else or another place that you're more comfortable researching Daniel chapter 9, or if you want to pray on it, I absolutely welcome that. Do what you need to do. So basically, Daniel chapter 9, it's the prophecy of the 70 weeks, is the narrative in chapter 9 of the book of Daniel, in which Daniel prays to God to act on behalf of his people and city, the Judeans and Jerusalem, and he receives a detailed but a cryptic prophecy of 70 weeks by the angel Gabriel. So that's basically what Daniel chapter 9 is about. So I'm going to read to you that helps us to understand a little bit more about this chapter, and so that we can understand why I was given this word. So it says the 70 weeks prophecy is one of the most significant and detailed messianic prophecies of the Old Testament. It is found in Daniel 9. The chapter begins with Daniel praying for Israel, acknowledging the nation's sins against God and asking for God's mercy. As Daniel prayed, the angel Gabriel appeared to him and gave him a vision of Israel's future. The divisions of the 70 weeks. In verse 24, Gabriel says, 77s are decreed for your people and your holy city. Almost all commenters agree that the 77 should be understood as 70 weeks of years. In other words, a period of 490 years. These verses provide a sort of clock that gives an idea of when the Messiah would come and some of the events that would accompany his appearance. The prophecy goes on to divide the 490 years into three smaller units, one of 49 years, one of 434 years, and 7 years. The final week of 7 years is further divided in half. Verse 25 says, from the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the Anointed One, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. 7 sevens is 49 years, and 62 sevens is another 434 years. Now, the purpose of the 70 weeks is this. The prophecy contains a statement concerning God's sixfold purpose in bringing these events to pass. Verse 24 says this purpose is, number 1, to finish transgression, number 2, to put an end to sin, number 3, to atone for wickedness, number 4, to bring in everlasting righteousness, 5, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and number 6, to anoint the most holy. Now notice that these results concern the total eradication of sin and the establishing of righteousness. The prophecy of the 70 weeks summarizes what happens before Jesus sets up his millennial kingdom. Of special note is the third in the list of results, which is to atone for wickedness. Now Jesus accomplished the atonement for sin by his death on the cross. And this is in Romans 3:25 and Hebrews 2:17. The fulfillment of the 70 weeks. Gabriel said the prophetic clock would start at the time that a decree was issued to rebuild Jerusalem. From the date of that decree to the time of the Messiah would be 483 years. We know from history that the command to restore and rebuild Jerusalem was given by the king of Persia. This was in 444 BC, and this is in Nehemiah 2:1-8. Now, the first unit of 49 years, the 7-7, covers the time that it took to rebuild Jerusalem with streets and a trench, but in time of trouble. This is Daniel 9:25. This rebuilding is chronicled in the book of Nehemiah. Converting the 360-day year used by the ancient Jews, 483 years becomes 476 years on our solar calendar. Now, adjusting for the switch from BC to AD, 476 years after 444 BC places us at AD 33, which coincides with Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem. This is in Matthew 21, 1-9. The prophecy in Daniel 9 specifies that after the completion of the 483 years, the anointed one will be cut off. This is in verse 26, and this was fulfilled when Jesus was crucified. Daniel 9:26 says this. It continues with a prediction that after the Messiah is killed, the people of the ruler who will come will destroy the city and sanctuary. Now, this was fulfilled with the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. The ruler who will come is a reference to the Antichrist, who, it seems, will have some connection with Rome, since it was Romans who destroyed Jerusalem. The final week of the 70 weeks. Now, of the 77s, 69 have been fulfilled in history. So this leaves one more 7 yet to be fulfilled. Many scholars believe that we are now living in a huge gap between the 69th week and the 70th week, and I've heard this before. The prophetic clock has been paused, as it were. The final 7 of Daniel is what we usually call the tribulation period, the last 7 years. Daniel's prophecy reveals some of the actions of the Antichrist, the ruler who will come. Verse 27 says he will confirm a covenant with many for 1/7. However, in the middle of the 7, he will set up an abomination that causes desolation in the temple. Jesus warned of this event in Matthew 24:15. After the Antichrist breaks the covenant with Israel, a time of great tribulation begins. And this is in Matthew 24:21. Daniel also predicts that the Antichrist will face judgment. He only rules until the end that is decreed is poured out on him. And this is in Daniel 9:27. God will only allow evil to go so far, and the judgment of the Antichrist will face has already been planned out. So the conclusion of this is the prophecy of the 70 weeks is complex and amazingly detailed. And much has been written about it. Of course, there are various interpretations, but what we have presented here is the dispensational pre-millennial view. One thing is certain, that God has a timetable and he is keeping things on schedule. He knows the end from the beginning, which says so in Isaiah 46:10, and we should always be looking for the triumphant return of our Lord, which is in Revelations 22:7. So like I said, if you guys aren't comfortable with that particular website, like I said, it's called Got Questions. Pray on this. Do some research of your own. But that was what I was given last night as I was awake. Daniel chapter 9. And this pertains to the 70 weeks. So, I've also been, told and heard from other pastors that we are in like a pause, so to speak. So I'm wondering, okay, is this a pause about to end? Now, I truly believe that we are extremely close. As I told you guys before, I was told 2 years ago that the 144,000 will be ready in 2 years. And this November 2024 will be 2 years. So I've just been waiting to see what's going to happen. Maybe nothing. I don't know. But when I asked for a word, that's what I got. So I want to share this with you guys. Ask you as always to please pray for discernment. Pray over it. Do your own research on Daniel chapter 9. And just let me know if you guys get anything. So I just pray for each and every one of you guys. I pray that the Lord protects you and your family, keeps you safe. Continue to pray for those that are lost. Continue to pray over your family. Don't be afraid to approach a family member or a friend, because it may be the last time you'll be able to do that. Don't put off tomorrow what you can do today, basically. You know what I'm saying? So that's my little advice. And if I get anything out, you guys know I'll share it with you. So again, I love you guys, and I pray you have a wonderful day.